Corrupt governance impacts us all in Trinidad and Tobago in more profound ways than just poorly managed services and neglected infrastructure. This PNM government laid the foundation for criminality in this country from its inception, and this, in part, is evidenced by our grossly corrupt police service. Under this current Prime Minister, the scourge of murders and lawlessness has soared to unimaginable heights. Yet, despite all the rhetoric and crime-fighting strategies employed over the decades, nothing has changed for the better. In fact, it has only gotten worse. Many in our country don't know how pervasive and bad things have become, because for the most part, many citizens live within the law, and they would never gain insight into how corrupt our politicians and police officers really are unless they inadvertently come into contact with the nefarious elements among them. Several years ago, this was how I became aware of the evil that's so pervasive within our shores. Land theft and crimes related to its acquisition and exploitation fuel an extremely high percentage of conflict, criminal activity, murders, court cases, and outright lawlessness in Trinidad and Tobago. And I unwittingly found this out while cultivating the property I had legal rights to in Arima. Unbeknownst to me, my neighbor Carver Felix, who occupied the parcel of land next to mine, was good friends with the infamous Mark Guerra from Laventille, who was gunned down in Waller Field. I learned from the woman whose land he commandeered that he was brought there by her to be a caretaker for her property, and eventually not even she could step foot onto her own premises due to his threats. I suffered the same and worse for over 12 years, as he sought to drive me from my holding. I endured destruction of property, theft, poisoning of my animals, encroachment, burning of my apiary and crops, threats to cut off my head and bury it on my own land, and his confident boast, I ain't afraid no police. I made countless reports to the La Joqueta police station to absolutely no avail. I was treated horribly by these officers. Even though I was the victim, they did everything in their power to protect him. I believe in following the law and due process. So I wrote numerous rank-and-file members of our police service without getting a response. This, over the years, included Commissioners Trevor Paul and Everell Snaggs, as well as Acting Commissioner James Filbert. Things were so bad, I even wrote the Attorney General at the time, John Jeremy. All of my correspondence were sent registered return receipt via TT Post, so I knew they got them. Even the Commissioner of State Lands wrote on my behalf to Acting Commissioner Filbert, affirming my title to the property and acknowledging my numerous complaints, highlighting the dire nature of my situation and requesting his intervention. Yet, I got no response or assistance. I met with numerous high-ranking officers. I showed them pictures and my documents. Yet, none of them helped me. I tried to solicit legal assistance from Anand Ramlogan and Keith Scotland to no avail. I even went to our police complaints division on several occasions, and they too did nothing. It was only after I made contact with the newly appointed Canadian Commissioner of Police, Dwayne Gibbs, and more specifically his fellow countryman and deputy, Jackie Watsky, that I got relief. My situation was so dire. Prior to their timely intervention, I had asked the Lord for advice on what to do, because I didn't want to be forced from my land, nor to be drawn into a situation where I would have to defend myself by mortally wounding anyone. Towards this end, I started recording every call and meeting with these officers, the date, time, their names and badge numbers, along with their statements. Also, due to the threats against my life and the number of attempts made to actually carry it out, I started a website where I posted my documents where they couldn't easily be erased. They showed my ownership of the property and the list I made of my interactions with the Trinidad and Tobago police over a period of 2 years, so that in the event anything happened to me, there would be a record of my efforts to seek assistance from the police, the media, and our politicians, which included both the PNM and People's Partnership administrations. It was a link to this website that I sent to Jack Iwatsky. He contacted me immediately. I wouldn't doubt, because of what both he and Dwayne Gibbs saw on this list, among the other revelations that came to them during their brief but impactful tenure, that it factored into their decision to prematurely end their contractual arrangement with the government of Trinidad and Tobago. It's primarily this experience and my interactions with other citizens of this country who faced, if not similar situations, harrowing accounts of their own, that placed me on this path of citizen journalists and activists, because our media refuses to cover such stories as they did in my case. When you see the extent of this list and who the high-ranking members of the police service were that protected this man, you'll understand why, in my last video, I referred to this so-called fight against crime by this lying, hypocritical, and corrupt PNM government as nothing but a fraud. Also, believe me when I say that the leader of this country's opposition, Kamla Persad-Bissessar, won't do anything different either, because when she was the Prime Minister, I wrote her too. You can find this list in the description.